Hello and welcome back, I'm ShyWizard. I'm going to do another Farming Simulator 17 tutorial. On this video I want to have a look at sugarcane because there are quite a lot of maps that perhaps maybe older maps now, conversions from FS17, maybe maps that are being created using older sample mod maps and all sorts of stuff like that which don't have sugarcane. Now it may be specific to the area that the map is being made on, or around or whatever else, and sugarcane isn't particularly harvested in that area or whatever else, and there's a purpose for it to be left out and all that sort of stuff. But for those of you that do want to have sugarcane in your map, and you're wondering how I can go about doing that, perhaps you're creating a map for the first time, or you're creating a whole new map or whatever else, and all the sample mod maps that you've got downloaded or you can find or whatever else to download just don't have what you need, and you're not quite sure how to go about making one of your own and all the rest of it. Or perhaps maybe you've got a map that you've made yourself or even somebody else has made and you want to put sugarcane into it. How do you go about doing that? Now, in my testing I've done with this in the past, when the Platinum edition first came out, and actually before then, I tried to work out how to get the sugarcane into a map by adding in the file IDs, creating material IDs, foliage sublayers, stuff like that. But because sugarcane uses a completely new blockShapeid, I found that by using the older sample mod maps that weren't set up for sugarcane specifically, they didn't tend to work very well. That blockShapeid wouldn't work properly, and I would get errors and the textures would look all weird. I have seen other people using soybean as a kind of a temporary, or whatever you want to call it, a substitute blockShapeid, and that does work to a degree. But again, I found that the textures don't look 100% correct if you have a map that's set up specifically for sugarcane and one that's just had the foliage sublayers added in. You look at them side by side, the textures don't look quite the same. Growth states aren't quite in the right places, things like that, and you may even come across problems where the sugarcane won't regrow on its own. You will then have to reseed it, which is not how the sugarcane is set up to be working and all that sort of stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create a sample mod map from the Crest Valley map, and then I'm going to literally delete everything off of it. So this will kind of give you possibly an added bonus of how to create your own sample mod maps, even if it's not got anything to do with the sugarcane side of things. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to bring in another map to that setup that now at this particular point doesn't have sugarcane. So the map I've got here on my desktop, if we actually look at this in the map 01, we'll open this up in Giants Editor, and if I come down to my foliage sublayers, you can see here that there is no sugarcane listed. It's got the last one in there is poplar. There's nothing else in here to do with sugarcane. So I want to get this map sugarcane ready, and the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to open up my Giants Editor session here, and I'm going to create a new mod from game, and I'm going to use the sample mod map 1, which is Crest Valley, and I'll click OK. It will create a working directory. You can change this if you want. I'm just going to leave it as it is, that's fine, and we'll click OK. This will then load up a sample mod map based on the Crest Valley map, like so. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to save that, and it will prepare my O3D and add in bits and pieces that it needs to bring in and whatever else, and save the mod and do whatever it needs to do. Okay, so now that that's finished, I can close that down, and I'm going to go into that mod folder where it created it, which is this one here. Just going to bring it out onto my desktop just so it's easier to work with. And I'm going to reopen it up in Giants Editor. Now you may find that this will bring in other parts that you don't particularly want, and you'll need to go through it and then just basically work with that and all the rest of it, and add parts and take parts out and all sorts of stuff. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to select the career start point at the top here and hold my left shift and click the last transform group, because I want to remove everything from this map. I don't want anything on this particular map at all. Now obviously if you are creating a sample mod map, you may want to go into here, take your animals, your load places. So for example, you could create a new transform group and then call this something like which I've seen on many maps. So you could call this all you need, and then take your perhaps maybe your water planes or whatever else. If we say we want to keep our animals, so I'll take our animals, field definitions. So if I hold my left control key, I can just click whichever ones I want to put together, sort of thing. Animal load triggers, maybe your gold nuggets, things like that. And I can go Control X, click on my all you need, Control V, and paste them in. They may shift on the map, may not, just depends. But all you're doing is creating and sort of set up that when you remove everything else, they'll be left behind, that you'll be able to work with them. That's fine. You can do that for whatever sample mod map that you want to create, and potentially keep some parts like trees and things like that, save you having to re-import them again and whatever else. But for me, I just want to get rid of everything because I don't need any of it, because I'm going to bring a load of other stuff into this map. So I'm going to highlight everything on here and just delete the whole lot of it. So we've now removed all of the objects from this particular map, and that's fine. So I'm going to go ahead and save. So it updates the i3D. But if I was to just go with this, I've got all of my textures and everything still in this particular folder. I've still got the trees and bits and pieces and stuff like that. I don't need those, because what I'm going to end up doing is potentially having duplicates of textures in many different folders with long path file names and all sorts of other gubbins. So I don't want any of that. So what I want to do is make this as optimized as I possibly can by removing any duplicate textures and whatever else that I'm not going to want to have on the map itself. So to do that, now that I've got my completely blank map, I mean, you could go in here and flatten this out and redraw it and do whatever you want to do with it, take off all the terrain textures and things like that, but I don't need to do that because I'm going to replace the DEM, so it'll all overwrite all the height, and I'm going to change everything when we get to that. It'll probably hopefully become a little bit clearer, but I'm not going to change anything there because I don't really need to at this point. So what I'm going to do now then is I'm going to re-export this. So I'm going to go File, Export All with Files. I'm going to go back to my desktop. I'm going to create a new folder, and you can call this whatever you want. So we'll just call this Map. And I'm going to open that one up, and I'm going to create another folder, call this Maps. And then I'm going to open that one up, and I'm going to create my name for my i3D of Map01. Keeping everything pretty straightforward, and it's going to match what I've got for both map setups. Now, obviously if you're working with a map that's got a different folder structure, you may need to have a bit of a play around with that, but luckily for me, both maps have exactly the same folder structure for the i3D and everything else, so I'm going to make it a little easier in this particular case. But hopefully the video will give you a direction to go in. That's what it's really all about. So I'm just going to go Save, and it says, do I want to keep the parent directory structure? Yes. And it'll export all of that, and I can then close this one down. And if I now go into my new map folder, you can see obviously there are some textures in here still, but there's not as many as there was before. It's really shortened it down. If I open this one up, you can see if you compare the two, we've got a little bit less in certain areas. Our shaders probably will be very similar. It's reduced some of those. Shared files may be reduced a little bit, yeah, things like that. So you're going to get rid of certain parts that you don't need really, because in this particular tutorial, because I'm going to be bringing in a complete map build up, which will then add all the parts in I need. Okay, so now that I've got that, I actually don't need my sample mod map anymore, so I can go ahead and delete that. That was literally just to create my base terrain, if you like, and all the parts that go with it. So I'm going to close that down. We'll just move that up out of the way, and I'm going to go into this particular map over here, and what I want to do is actually take everything from this map and bring into this one, so that it then makes it sugarcane ready, if you like. So what I'm going to do in this particular case is I'm going to highlight everything underneath the terrain, because we've already got the camera, the sun and the terrain in our other map build. So I want to just take everything building wise and whatever else from this particular map. So I'm going to choose the one directly under terrain, the transform group there, scroll down to the bottom, hold my left shift and click the bottom one. With everything there highlighted, I'm going to go File, Export Selection with Files. I'm just going to go back to my desktop, make sure I'm in the right folder here, so Maps, because you need to be where your map01.i3d is. And it doesn't matter what you call this because it will be deleted later on, so I'm just going to call it 1. And I'm going to go Save. I want to keep the parent directory structure, so I'm going to click Yes. It will now export everything from this map into that i3d. I can now close that down. We'll come back to that, and we'll need it a little bit later on, but for now what I want to do is open this one up, and you can see my newly created i3d there. We're going to open this map 01 in Giants Editor, and when you do this, it's always worth just checking for any errors that may be relevant. You might be missing some shaders, or may have incorrect path file names or whatever else, so it can be beneficial to just check things like that as you're going through. We don't have any, so that's good. I'm going to go File, Import, and I'm going to click on my newly created i3d here, which will then bring everything that I exported from the other map into this map. But obviously, as you can see, it's all under the ground and it doesn't look right. The terrain around it doesn't match and whatever else, which is what we're going to cover next. So I'm going to click Save, and this will then update my i3d for the map 01 with all of the new objects that I've brought into here. So I'm going to close that down. I can now delete my other i3d with all the parts that I exported from the other map. Don't need it anymore. So I can go ahead and delete those parts, that's fine. So if I then go back into the other map, there's some parts on this particular map that I need to bring over. So you need to go through all of this and just see what's missing possibly from one to bring into the other one. So if we have a look in our field planes folder, we've got some other bits and pieces in here. So I need to bring those over, like so. And you can have a look in your foliage textures. Now obviously we're going to have an extra one in here because we have our sugarcane, but on this particular map there are some additional decorative foliage channels, so you may find that depending on what you want to do with it, if you want to bring those back in, you will need to do that manually. You'll need to go back in and add all the file IDs, material IDs and whatever else, but I would recommend that that's the way to do it anyway. It'll keep everything structured and limit your conflicts and things like that. So we can just literally bring over our foliage folder and just merge it. Skip everything that's already there because you don't want to overwrite something that's going to cause a problem, unless the textures on the map you're taking everything from are slightly different. Obviously you're going to want to keep them so it keeps the map intact in the way it was. In this particular case I'm not that fussed because it's not really about the textures, it's about how to get your sugarcane set up on the map and whatever else, and you know, as a side sort of thing, how to create your own sample mod maps and whatever. So in this particular one we have some scripts. We have the chop straw mod, so you can bring over whatever you want here if you want to bring in your chop straw again. I'm not going to get into all of that in this particular video, but again, it's just really how to get it set up with the sugarcane. But you can bring all that stuff over. So I want to bring over the chop straw if I'm going to add that in. Our map 01, the actual density channels here are set up for Crest Valley. So I want to bring all of those in. So I'm going to take the chop straw to assume I'm going to bring it in later on. My map 01, I want to bring over my scripts because that's got some things to do with animated pedestrians and bits and pieces, the ship for the balloon, the ship script for the balloon, all that sort of stuff. Possibly there may be some additional sounds. So I'm going to make a copy of all of those and bring them over, and we'll just merge all of those folders. Again, you can skip all of the ones that already exist if you feel you need to. You might need to go through each one of them and just double check, because a sound file in here might be called something the same as in here, but it's actually a different sound that's created. It's just named the same or something like that. So you'll need to obviously spend a little bit more time than I'm doing here in the video, but we're going to copy over our next part, which is our animated object setup. So we're going to copy that over. And we also need our map 01 down to our PDA. We've got everything else there we need. So we're going to make a copy of that, bring that over and paste that in as well. You might again need to go into some of the textures. The textures should be fine, but you may need to set something up in there to do with the terrain textures and things like that. Just depends. It should automatically bring it over for you. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, but you just need to work with that. So we've got all of our parts there. Again, shaders, you might need to have a look at your shaders and see what you've got there, because there's quite a lot of different ones on this map to what's over here. But again, this can be something that you can open up the map in GE, see what is missing and only bring over what is missing, because again you can end up with a lot of shaders and not need all of them. For this particular setup, I'm literally just going to bring the lot over just so it limits the amount of time I have to spend going through it in the video tutorial. So I'm going to skip what ones are already there because I don't need to have that again. We need to bring over our default vehicles, icon and mod desk. So we're going to make a copy of that as well. Okay, so now in theory, if I go back into the map 01, and we can come in, and this is what the map originally looked like. We've got no errors in our console, so that's fantastic. And everything is exactly where it needs to be. And the added bonus here, if we go into our terrain editing, we can come down and we have sugarcane, and we can then just test that out. Anywhere will do, I guess. Come down to here and I can paint my sugarcane in. So now this particular map has sugarcane, which it didn't before. So I'm going to choose change over to my sugarcane. We'll do 5 and 6 on our channels, and we'll just paint some in here like so. Again, I'm not too fussed about the tidiness of it or whatever else, just going to be for the demonstration here in the video. And you can see our distance channels will work and everything else, so that's set up okay. Again, like if you've got additional fruit types like your oat, rye, millet, all that sort of stuff, they will need to be added in again using the additional map type script or however you've got that set up. But for me, this is the best process of how to get sugarcane into a map that doesn't have sugarcane. And if you were making a map today, if I was making a map today, I would make a completely new sample mod map from Crest Valley, which would then give me the capability of having sugarcane in the map. So we've now got our sugarcane all put in the map and everything else. We've put some in the field here just so we've got enough to actually harvest and test this out. I've set the field up so that I own it at the start of a new game save and whatever else. And the last thing I want to do here is just have a look at how the tip colour is set up to see if that's been brought over and works correctly, because if it's not working correctly, you'll have problems when you start to try and harvest a field. The straw won't show up and all sorts of other bits and pieces, or you'll try and tip something into a shed or a bunker or something and the tip coal will cover that up and then it won't work properly and all sorts of other things. So we're going to have a quick look at that. So you need to come down to your info layer painting section here, and this is how you would set up your nav meshes for your animals, but you also have another drop down here which gives you this one called tip coal, and that's what we're going to be working with. So we select that, we come up to our terrain info layer painting mode and we select that, and then if we have a look on the map itself, we can see where the actual tip coal setup is on this particular map, and you can see that it has actually brought over the tip coal from the original version of this map, and there's only a couple of areas which are actually outside of our map setup, if you like. So this is when you would redo your tip coal if you needed to, if it didn't look right, or you wanted to adjust it or whatever else. But the way that this is set up and everything else, we need to regenerate it because we haven't done that as yet. Even though we've got one, it's not matched into this map layout, if you like. So what we need to do is actually run a script here. So we're going to go FS17 map, and then we're going to create a ground collision map. So we just literally click on that. It will take a couple of seconds, and then eventually it will come up and say save and collision map, and it will give you the path file name to that. And then we can just click save, and you must click save after you've created it, because otherwise it won't update the i3D. Just because you've created it, it then needs to be updated in the actual i3D as well. So we need to save the Giants editor session, and we can then click off of that, and away we go. So what we'll do next is we'll get all this set up in the map folder here. Yeah, that's fine, I can save it, it's no problem because I moved the mouse. So I've got it in my map folder here already, and I'll get it into game, and then we'll just have a quick look and see if we can harvest the sugarcane. We'll have a quick look, see if there are any errors and bits and pieces like that. Should be pretty good, I think, but we'll cover that when we get to it. Okay, so you can see we have traffic working. We have a hot air balloon up in the sky over there. I think, oh, there's a jet that's flying around. If that is a jet, I don't know what it is, doesn't matter. That's all flying around, no problem. Seems to be fine so far. I'll bring up the console extension. The only warning I have there is for console extension itself. That's just one that's always there for some reason. We can have a quick look through here, just see if there are any other errors. Something to do there. Animal pedestrian can't find animated. So we need to bring over some parts there. This is what you'll need to go through. If you haven't got console extension, you'll need to go into your actual log text and just identify any kind of errors, and then bring over parts that may not have been brought over. There's another error there, I don't know what that is. Oh, that's nothing. That's got something to do with a mod that I've got, which I need to delete because it's not very good, it's broken. So we need to have a quick look at the animated animals section. So we'll quickly just come back out again, and we'll have a quick look at that, just see what that's all about. Some i3Ds and bits and pieces I haven't brought over, and yeah, then we'll come back into game. We'll have a bit more of a look and see if we can harvest the sugarcane. But I know what I like to do is come in and just see what errors are thrown up, and then fix them straight away. You leave them, and then another error occurs, and another error occurs, and then before you know it, you're completely lost. So it's just worth coming into game, seeing what it throws up, because sometimes Giants Editor won't find all of the errors. You have to come into game for it all to link together, and then the engine throw up the errors itself. So we're going to have a quick look at those errors, see what's missing, and then we'll come back in a minute and go from there. So back out on the desktop here, and I've brought up the log text. This will show you any errors for your last run session in the actual game. So if we have a look here, we've got animal pedestrian can't find, and a path file name into mods map maps textures, and then animated things. So we need to have a quick look in there. So if we go into maps, textures, and then animated things, so all of these parts need to be brought over. I want to keep the path file name, the folder structure the same. So we're going to go maps, textures, and we have animated things, but it hasn't brought over the actual i3Ds themselves, and they are important because that's what this script looks for to then bring that into the map. So what I'm going to do here then is I'm just going to back out, and I'm going to make a copy of the entire folder like so, and I'm going to paste that into there. We'll go yes, and I'm going to click, we'll do the same for all conflicts, and we'll click copy and replace. And if I then open up that folder, we'll have everything in here, no problem. So back in game once again, and everything seems to be working as was before. Traffic is around somewhere on here. We have our hot air balloon, the rest of it. So we'll bring up console extension just one more time here, have a quick look through there. No errors there, no errors there. Looking good. I've got some other mods in my mod folder which are throwing up some bits and pieces, but otherwise there we're pretty good. So I would probably suggest not do what I've done and put this into a mod folder that's got loads of other mods in it. Make sure your folder's got only what you need to get the map running just for testing purposes. Then you can add all your other stuff in later on, because you can end up with an error and search on the map for days trying to find the error, and it's not got nothing to do with the map. It's actually a mod that you've got in there as well. So okay, so what we're going to do then is I'm going to add some money in so I can actually buy that'll do. So I can actually buy a sugarcane harvester here. We'll just get the big one so we don't have to mess around too much. There we go. Fantastic. I haven't used this very much actually, so we'll just see how we get on with this. So we'll head on down to field 5 here, which is the field that I set up partially with sugarcane on it. So unfold harvester, pipe out, sort of semi get ready to go, I guess. And you can see our sugarcane is now showing up in the distance there. Distance textures all working perfectly fine. It's not too bad on frames per second. I'm not sure what frames per second on this map was originally, the actual map that I based this around. I'm on ultra high or very high or whatever it is, I don't remember. So we'll get into here. Come on, start up. There we go. And theoretically I should be able to turn this on, and away we go. We are harvesting our sugarcane, and it's all laying down the hulm on the ground there and doing its thing. We can do unload here, so we actually get our sugarcane coming out the unit as well. Okay, it's going on the floor, but you know, whatever. But all the particles there are doing what they're meant to do. It's coming out clear now, I think. Yeah, that one. Like I said, I haven't used this thing very much, so I don't really know too much about it, if I'm honest. This is just really how to try and give you a tutorial on, one, how to create your own sample mod maps, more up-to-date one, if you like, using the Crest Valley setup, and which will then give you the capability of sugarcane. And then obviously, you know, the second part is to give you a bit of a heads up on a direction to go in if you want to make a map that's potentially already been made and put together and whatever else, how to then get that sugarcane compatible and working correctly with sugarcane. And like I said earlier on the video, you can use soybean as a sort of temporary, or whatever you want to call it, a substitute blockShapeid, but in my experience it doesn't work properly. It doesn't give you the correct textures, and it misses out growth states and all sorts of different things. That's just in my experience. If anybody's had better experience, you know, getting it working that way, then great, go with it. But this is the only way I would ever work with it. Obviously there are downsides to it. It's very time consuming doing it this way, and you will then need to add in all your additional bits and pieces. So any additional decorative crops, and you have all the stuff here with your whatever mod that's called, game extension, showing up sugarcane, all that, remove tops. Yeah, so if you have all the decorative crops, or not crops, decorative foliage, any additional fruit types, sugarcane, oat, millet, rye, all that sort of stuff, you'll need to add all of those in, or add them back in again, and whatever else, set all that up. Yeah, so you know, there are downsides to it, but for me the main positive side is that it makes sugarcane work the way it's meant to work, and in certain circumstances it may even give you the side effect of giving you a better map optimization at the same time and things like that. So anyway, I'm going to end the video here. I'm ShyWizard. Thank you very much for watching. I really hope that this has helped some people out if they were considering playing around with sugarcane, just weren't sure how to set it up in a map or whatever else. Like I say, hopefully this gives you a direction to go in. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you on the next one.